Hello everyone, my name is Reiki. I'm a map maker at Seeds, and today I'm going to talk about the Seeds season proposal and model. First, I'm going to show you how to get here. So if you go to our Seeds knowledge base, explore.joinseeds.earth, you're going to land here at this navigational map. Seasons is part of our foundation. You click on this seasonal organization structure here. That's going to bring you to the seasons structure. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is an intro to seasons, kind of the why of seasons and the potential here as far as I see it. We're going to get into the seasons themselves, the 4 different seasons. Now, when it says spring, this doesn't mean it has to be spring in your physical context. It's more of the energy and organizing pattern behind that season that we're talking about here. Next, we're going to get into the regenerative Renaissance roundtables, or what I call just R3, and what this 7-day process actually looks like, where 3 days are part of all participants, etc. And kind of get into this organizing pattern. Finally, talk about what's in a season. So what are the responsibilities of commons organizations? One more thing as far as the overview here is now we can have the seasonal recaps. So every season that we have, after we go through and host them, we'll be able to link all the notes and videos for that season in here and be able to keep a really clean record of where we've been and where we're going. So we have one reference point. We haven't been doing this so far, and if we have, I'm not aware of it, and we can look back and add the previous seasons and previous stuff that we've done here. All right, so now I'm going to dive into this. At the start of all of the documents now in our knowledge base, it says, 1, who's governing this space. So I want to say that this doesn't exist yet, but it is a badge process that I'm proposing governs these spaces. So who gets to make edits and changes to this document would be a Commons Curator badge, and this badge is then issued by the Seeds Commons itself. So when we're able to set up a do for the Commons, then you propose to have a badge in that, and that's also how the citizens and the Commons itself is able to say who's curating our knowledge base, or at least the knowledge bases that are badge governed. And then it says whose domain it is. So whose operational domain is it to maintain this space, consider it, evolve it. Right now I'm putting it as Seeds Commons, but I'm also proposing that the Seeds Commons doesn't do operations, but rather each organ does. So it might be Renaissance Explorers or another do that takes over the responsibility of testing seasons out and improving this model, season after season. So this is an opportunity for an organization within Seeds to say, yep, we want to take on this space and move it forward. So there's a governance history here. It hasn't been ratified yet. In fact, there's a proposal up right now. So if it does go through or if it doesn't, we'll track that here. So every space shows, how is it governed, who's maintaining it, and a history of governance of changes for that space. All right, so the big view of seasons is that we're able to live the change we wish to see. If we look back at a lot of cultures throughout history, they actually had seasonal social patterns. I'm enjoying this book right now. It's called The Dawn of Everything, New History of Humanity. It talks about some cultures that had completely different social structures depending on the season. For example, when it's summer and fall and is hunting and gathering season, they'd be in small bands with a different social structure for how they make decisions and organize and cooperate. Versus when it was winter and they were moving back into condensed village and city life, and it was a totally different organizational and structure and coordination structure for that time of the year. And now these natural rhythms kind of followed ecological patterns. They were out there hunting and gathering when hunting and gathering was abundant. But when those resources were scarce, they came together in a city to maintain scarce resources more effectively. And each organizing pattern had different principles behind it. I think we can start modeling a similar pattern here where depending on the season, we can have a different organizing principle for that season. And that's what we're setting the foundation for us to do here. So we're saying regenerative cultures are ones that aren't always on. Like our culture of 9 to 5 is it doesn't matter what time of year it is, if it's winter or summer, it's just 9 to 5 every day, same pattern, same rhythm. And we're seeing like massive increase in anxiety, depression, worker burnout, etc., because I think this is a broken pattern. So what we're suggesting here is to live the change we wish to see. This isn't a sprint. It's not a marathon. Seeds isn't like this is our end goal. We just have to get there as quick as possible and let's burn ourselves out to get there. This is no, we're living a regenerative culture and civilization which could have these organizing principles that maintain more homeostasis throughout the year and more balance between where we're focusing. So this is a huge part of seasons, is to be able to live the change we wish to see and create new organizing patterns today and start embodying those so that we can avoid burnout and stuff like that. Next is measuring success. So when we adopt a seasonal model, we get to identify on every seasonal basis what we're focusing on, what is success, how we're achieving that, talking about milestones, and how we're moving towards creating a regenerative culture. And this helps us step out of the default patterns that were being offered, which are market cycles, bear and bull. People are saying, oh, is seed succeeding based on your price of a token rather than everything else we're doing? So this helps us measure success differently and step out of thinking about, how do we make short-term myopic decisions to get token price to go up, and instead of how do we move towards achieving our ultimate goal of creating a regenerative civilization. I call this cathedral building mentality, because when you're building cathedrals, the people who started that process, it wasn't them or their kids oftentimes that even got to see the finished project. But yet they still gave incredible attention to detail for every step of that process. And I think that what we can start implementing within seeds, because this is a massive endeavor that's going to take a long time for us to get really right. And moving into that seasonal pattern where it's more sustainable and when we're tracking success in the ways that we choose can help us do this in the long term and avoid failure and burnout. So consciously stepping out of market cycles. One more part that I think is really awesome here is that we could achieve a counter-cyclical status. So with the current dominant, old economies, as they're going through bear and bull markets and their regular cycles of boom and bust and what they do, we can create our own economic pattern. So when, the old economies are going into a bear cycle and everyone's looking to flee to different assets, seeds can be having a completely different economic rhythm that would be a balancing act for that. So people who are looking to leave a bear market could then join seeds and enter into a new type of economic system that has its own behaviors attached to it. Anyway, we can get really deep there, but this is, again, setting the stage for a potential where we create our own economic rhythms. We can come down here to some of the quick details. So it's a protocol to consciously and collaboratively focus on what we want to do each season, and it gives citizens the ability to steer where we're headed each season because they choose which organizations are going to be part of the commons for that next season. I'm actually going to jump around a little bit because I'm going to show you what that looks like right here. So this is the Regenerative Renaissance Roundtable, or what I'm calling R3. We can come up with a new name. Again, all of this is a work in progress. But essentially what this is a period once every 3 months that help us coordinate and organize. And it's a minimal viable way for people to show up and contribute to seeds. So instead of asking citizens to be always on, voting on proposals every single month, there's a ton of videos, and I know I'm part of doing that, for people to try to watch, and it feels overwhelming. So with the roundtable, we're saying actually there's 3 days every year where if you show up and attend those sessions, you're going to get 80%, or at least that's the goal, of what's going on in seeds, where we're headed, what are we doing, and for you to actively participate in steering this ecosystem. And then you spend 1 day voting. And then actually, let me just walk through the process. So the process looks like the first day is the previous commons organizations come together and present what happened last season. So Haifa shows up, Samara, etc., etc. They all come and they give come right down to here. So this is the responsibilities of commons organizations, is they give a 7 to 15 minute presentation on what was accomplished. So they go back and say, this is what we did last season. So this is a great place to be able to show up and get an update on everything that's been happening across the whole ecosystem. Next, they give a 7 to 15 minute presentation on key learnings. So this is less focused on, hey, we did X, Y, and Z to meet our goals, and instead we learned A, B, and C along the way. These are the key things that we were able to discover. And this is how we help share learnings and key insights throughout the ecosystem. So this would be day 1. And then day 2, coming back over to here, is a prospective commons organizations present. So any organization that wants to be part of the next season would then present what they want to bring for that season. So let's come right back down to here again. It is a 7 to 15 minute presentation of the next 1 to 3 major goals for the next season. We try to keep this really high level so that citizens and everyone else can follow along. Because then the citizens are going to take this information of what you're wanting to bring for the next season, and discuss it on day 3 of the roundtable. So after organizations have presented what they want to bring, day 3 is all the citizen assemblies. So we'll have a bunch of different breakout groups and conversations discussing everything that happened the last 2 days. With the goal for day 4, citizens are prepared and have the knowledge they need to vote on which organizations are going to be part of the next season. So day 4, all the citizens are voting and saying, yep, we want these organizations to participate. And again, this is how the citizens are steering. They're saying, this organization wants to do marketing. Yeah, let's do marketing next season. This organization wants to do onboarding of new members. This one wants to focus on doing governance or whatever it is. We'll get more into that when we get into seasons. But this is how the citizens decide where we're moving forward. Sorry, right here. Then after the citizens voted on the organizations, let's say they picked 15. Those 15 organizations are each, on day 5, going to select 2 people from their organizations to make up the Commons Council. So day 5 is when all of those organizations that were selected, they meet and they choose 2 individuals to join the council. Day 6 is when that council actually convenes. So each of those 2 representatives then join the Commons Council Assembly, which is the next day. And for the next 2 days, the Commons Council's job is to establish a budget. So if there's 15 organizations that are part of the season for the next 3 months, the Commons Council comes together to say, all right, well, we have a budget of, X million dollars. How do we separate that for those 15 organizations for the next 3 months? So that's their task. And there's a lot of different ways the Commons might accomplish this. But that's the general overview. So that once every season, we have this 1-week process of coming together, coordinating, organizing, setting a budget, and then going back out there and accomplishing what we want to accomplish for the next season. Now I put it in here that these presentations don't need to take a lot of time, and we don't want to really spend more, at least these are my opinions, we don't want to spend more than 1 to 2 weeks of each season preparing for and executing the Regenerative Renaissance Roundtable. So we don't want this to be a huge time sink, and instead just be a way of easily coordinating around what we're doing and where we're moving for the next period of time. All right, so now I'm going to dive into, actually I'll touch on a little bit more in the intro. Let's see if I missed anything really profound. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. You could read this. Here's a big key is you can participate in one season, all seasons, or anything that best suits you. So what I've noticed is a pattern where people come into seeds, they're super excited, they really get involved, and then they're like, whoa, there's so much going on, I can't handle this, I have to leave. I've got to completely step out of this. And it's not a very healthy pattern because people come in, they get excited, they get burnt out, and then they leave. So what this does is actually provides a container where people can come in, put 3 months of effort in, and then step out, and that's kind of expected, and it's even an invitation and offering for people to be able to take that time off. And if they do take that time off, there's a clear invitation at the start of the next season when they can come back in if they feel like contributing again. But there's not this sense of like, ooh, I tried to contribute, I've got burnt out, and I can't take it anymore, which I've heard a couple times, and that's really unfortunate. So it's one of the main reasons for designing the seeds model, or the seasons model, is to be able to overcome that overwhelm. Yeah, so it's provides a clear time for people to enter and exit active participation. The seasonal pattern provides a diversity of unique ways to contribute. So actually, I'm going to jump to the seasons for this one. So this is what I think will also be helpful is instead of spending all of our time trying to do everything at the same time, we actually break that out into different chunks throughout the year and say, okay, we're going to focus on, for example, take spring. So we're putting the spring energy is about inviting new people. So this focuses on new community calls and activations and onboarding sessions. This is when we might be running the Ambassador Academy. There's a high and moderate internet use going on here, which is, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but this is just how I'll explain it. The high internet use is about digital hygiene, which I think, again, this is very personal for me, and it's something I've heard in the ecosystem a lot is, hey, time out. We're building a regenerative civilization, but I'm spending all my time on a computer. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So this is about consciously setting up periods where it's like, look, we're going to have a lot of internet use at this time because that's how we're coordinating and organizing, but we need seasons where we're stepping out of that so we can reground and connect with the natural world and get offline a little bit. So digital hygiene is another really important part of the seasons model. Yep, I'm going to kick back into this. Yeah, so you might see in the spring where we're really focused on new energy, growth, igniting activations, etc. But that's not something we can maintain year round. Even the Ambassador Academy is like, all right, we actually needed to take a break. So what we're doing is we're consciously building those patterns. And then when people are showing up through the year, yes, you can invite them in and someone else can welcome them in and walk them through. But if they're looking at, to participate in the academy and have a lot of energy and resources to support them through their learning journey here, then they wait till the next spring season to then be able to participate in a lot of those onboarding sessions that have a lot of energy behind them. Yeah, and this is when we might be doing invite campaigns, etc. So, for example, the spring is about expansion, going out. It's a global focused, right? Same thing with summer, but it changes a little bit. So look at summer, for example. Summer is when we are doing bioregional local activations. We are on the ground doing in-person events, and we want to do this in summer anyway. And this is when we're outside in nature, hands in the soil, getting dirty, getting a lot of sunlight, and we're on the ground doing the work of regeneration, right? From a developer perspective, this is when they're resting. So developers will kind of go throughout the rest of the year building tools, but this is when they're just taking time off. Let's build that into our regenerative culture. This is a period of season to just go explore the natural world. Go be part of these local activations and help plant trees and plant gardens, etc. So the shift here is the Ambassador Academy may still be active, or maybe they just want to be spring, who knows? But then we're doing moderate to low internet use. So we're spending less time online coordinating, inviting people, sending out invite campaigns, and more time on the ground, in person, connecting with people. But this is still expansion and kind of that yang growth energy. Season of fall. So this is when we move towards local yin and we start contracting and consolidating some of that energy. So this is where we might focus on personal well-being and thrivability. We'll reflect on what happened the last few seasons, on our economic and governance protocols. So this is where we have time to, reflect, research, explore, make sense, have community dialogues around what's working, what's not working. So here's when we shift from, instead of the Ambassador Academy being active, bringing in more energy, now we have the Renaissance Explorers, maybe the inner space, focusing on inner transformation. How we see the world, because a lot of us know that this is a foundation for building a regenerative culture isn't just all the tools, but it's the frame of mind that we're in, the way that we see the world and how we're interacting with the world that's informing how we're building those tools and what technology we're building. So this is a time to really consciously slow down, reflect, discuss, and make sense. Why? Because the next season, winter, is when we're actively evolving our economic protocols. So when we've had this time to really get inspired and do some sense making before we come together and try to make decisions and align and then discuss and actually take action and make proposals. So instead of having proposals all year round, which is what we're doing, where a referendum can come up at any moment and every new lunar cycle we're expected as a citizen, a good citizen, to go in and help make thoughtful, informed decisions, we're instead saying, nope, we're going to make this as part of winter seasons. And I want to say this again, a winter season can happen 4 times a year if we need to. But these are just different seasons that the citizens are kind of selecting each year based on our need and what the ecosystem needs at any given time. But anyway, so then after we followed a fall season, it would behoove us to enter into a winter season where we actually take all the informed wisdom from the previous season and use it to evolve our protocols and crafting new types of organization structures. So I'll actually walk through one other flow that's really valuable here, and the point of view of Regen Civics. So Regen Civics is about taking all the tools we've been building and very practically applying them in place. So what it might look like is winter is when they're designing those new Regen Civics projects. They looked at what happened over the last year. We said, okay, cool, this might be a new organization structure. This is when we're creating templates, making flyers, creating the DAO structure, making new roles, quests, policies, and all that stuff. So we're creating the container. And then come spring, this is when we invite everyone into it. So this is when we're doing the community calls and activations and onboarding. We have the container created. It was thoughtfully articulated in fall. We created the container in winter. Spring is when we invite everyone into that space. We're doing crowdfunding and crowd pooling of all our resources. And then summer is when we actually go out there and activate it and do the work and get you know, you get it. Fresh air, sunlight, hands in the soil, building, repairing, regenerating. This is doing the activations, right? And then fall is where we recover from that, spend time with family, be part of the villages that we just set up, consider what we make for the next season. Then winter is we design those tools and we repeat the cycle, right? And this is something that could be a really healthy pattern for us to do indefinitely and have very, fulfilling and nourishing lives. And if we can follow a healthy rhythm like this. All right, so that's the general idea around seasons. And again, I want to say this is not dogmatic. This is just a general pattern, and I really expect this pattern to severely evolve over time as we experience it. We're going to go through this, decide we might need extra seasons. 4 isn't doing it, or, spring really looks like this, or whatever. All of this is open to reinterpretation and negotiation as we continue to learn. Finally, I want to just talk about the other value here is the seasonal recaps. So I'm really intending for March to be the first time running through this model and trialing it out, if this proposal passes, of course. And then we can go through and have all the days and the information kind of linked here and to see what this looks like as we unfold and go forward. I'm going to pause here. This is about 20 minutes. We'll leave it at that. So this is a quick recap of what the seasons look like. Leave any feedback on this video or in Discord itself, and let's continue to evolve this model. Thanks, everyone.